The House will be in order. The first order of business is roll call. The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will record their presence. Has every member recorded their presence? Representative Nielsen is here. Representative Smith is here. Representative Gideus is here. Has every member recorded their presence? Clerk will lock the machine, record the roll. The roll call shows 63 present, 7 absent and excused, a quorum being present. The House is ready for business. The second order of business is prayer by the chaplain, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Today the prayer will be led by Pastor Tom Doherty, and the pledge will be led by House Page Laura Spencer. Will the guests in the gallery please rise?
Passage of Scripture today is from Job, chapter 34, verse 2 through 4. Hear my words, O you wise men, and give ear unto me, ye that have knowledge. For the ear trieth words, as the mouth tasteth meat. Let us choose to us judgment. Let us know amongst ourselves what is good. Let's pray. Our dear Father in heaven, thank you for the many wise people you have assembled in this place. Thank you for the desire to be used in a positive way to bring great solidarity to this wonderful state. Dear Lord, as decisions are made, I pray that you would continue to give each member discernment as they discuss those things that are important. I pray, dear Lord, that this entire State House, that there would be a great cooperation and desire to see wonderful things happen. Each of us have a unique role to play in pressing forward each day. Thank you for the tiny piece of the puzzle that we can fit to see the puzzle complete. Many minds create many ideas. From those, O Lord, springs ideas that benefit this great state, and thank you for the vast opportunities that come from them. Lord, I give you thanks and praise in this house today. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The House will now advance to the third order of business, approval of the Journal. The House is at the third order.
February 28, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary, Rules and Administration report that we have read and approved the House Journal of the 52nd Legislative Day and recommend same be adopted as corrected. Moved by Wills, seconded by Burgoyne.
You've all heard the motion. We're about to vote. You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries and the report is adopted. Good lady from District 18.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for a point of personal privilege.
The good lady has the floor.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to have you help me welcome the fourth graders, I believe, from White Pine Elementary, which is in my district. They're in the gallery today.
I believe there's a White Pine Elementary in nearly every district.
This is a special White Pine district.
The House will now advance to the fourth order of business, consideration of messages from the Governor and the Senate. The House is at the fourth order.
From the Senate, February 27, 2013, Mr. Speaker, I transmit herewith enrolled Senate Bills 1016 and 1017 for the signature of the Speaker, Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
Senate Bills 1016 and 1017 will be signed by the Speaker and returned to the Senate.
From the Senate, February 27, 2013, Mr. Speaker, I transmit herewith Senate Bills 1074, 1093, 1063, 1072 as amended, 1062 as amended, 1048 as amended, and 1113, which have passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
Senate Bills 1074, 1093, 1063, 1072 as amended, 1062 as amended, 1048 as amended, as well as Senate Bill 1113 will be filed for first reading.
From the Senate, February 27, 2013, Mr. Speaker, I return here with House Bill 72, which has passed the Senate. Novak, Secretary of the Senate.
House Bill 72 will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for enrolling. The House will now advance to the fifth order of business. Report of standing committees. The House is at the fifth order. Good gentleman from District 20.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask unanimous consent that House Bill 155 on the second reading would be sent back to the Transportation Committee, and if I may speak to that.
The gentleman may explain to the body.
This bill came out of committee a few days ago, and we have since seen some problems with it. I've talked to the sponsor and several members of the committee, and we'd like to take it back and have another look at it. The biggest problem with it is the penalty section of it. There's some issues there.
What is the subject matter, sir?
The subject matter deals with cell phone usage, and the penalty, we might not have it on the right person.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request to pull House Bill 155 off the second reading calendar and back to the Transportation and Defense Committee. Is there an objection? Hearing none, so ordered. The House is at the fifth order.
February 28, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration, report that we have printed House Bills 222, 223, 224, 225, 226, 227, 228, and 229. Wills, Chairman.
House Bills 222, 223, and House Bill 229 will be referred to the State Affairs Committee. House Bills 224, 225, and 226 will be referred to the Education Committee. House Bill 227 and 228 will be referred to the Rev and Tax Committee.
February 28, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration, report that we have enrolled House Concurrent Resolution 4 and House Bill 29. Wills, Chairman.
House Concurrent Resolution number 4 and House Bill 29 will be signed by the Speaker and returned to the Senate for the President's signature.
February 28, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration, report that we have transmitted enrolled House Bill 12, as amended in the Senate, to the Governor at 11:26 a.m. as of this date, February 27, 2013. Wills, Chairman. February 27, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Health and Welfare, report that we have had under consideration House Concurrent Resolution 10 and recommend that it do pass.
House Concurrent Resolution 10 will be filed for the second reading.
February 27, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Health and Welfare, report that we have had under consideration Senate Bill 1013 and report it back with amendments attached to be placed on general orders for consideration. Wood, Chairman.
Senate Bill 1013 will be placed on general orders.
February 27, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Business, report that we have had under consideration House Bills 196 and 199 and recommend that they do pass. Henderson, Chairman.
House Bills 196 and 199 will be filed for second reading.
February 27, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration, report that we have had under consideration House Bills 124 and 214 and recommend that they do pass. Wills, Chairman.
House Bills 124 and 214 will be filed for the second reading.
February 27, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration, report that we have had under consideration House Bill 30 and report it back with amendments attached to be placed on general orders for consideration. Wills, Chairman.
House Bill 30 will be placed on general orders.
February 28, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on Education, report that we have had under consideration Senate Bill 1055 and recommend that it do pass. And we have Education House Bill 206 and recommend that it do pass. DeMordaunt, Chairman.
Senate Bill 1055 and House Bill 206 will be filed for second reading.
February 28, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on State Affairs, report that we have had under consideration House Bill 220 and recommend that it do pass. Lurcher, Chairman.
House Bill 220 will be filed for the second reading.
February 28, 2013, Mr. Speaker, we, your Committee on State Affairs, report that we have had under consideration House Bill 193 and report it back with amendments attached to be placed on general orders for consideration. Lurcher, Chairman.
House Bill 193 will be placed on general orders. Without objection, the House will now advance to the seventh order of business, motions, memorials, and resolutions. The House is at the seventh order.
In the House of Representatives, House Concurrent Resolution Number 13 by Health and Welfare Committee, a concurrent resolution stating findings of the legislature and rejecting a certain rule docket of the Idaho Fish and Game Commission relating to the rules governing licensing. House Concurrent Resolution Number 14 by Health and Welfare Committee, a concurrent resolution stating findings of the legislature and rejecting a certain rule docket of the Idaho Fish and Game Commission relating to the rules governing the taking of big game animals in the state of Idaho.
House Concurrent Resolutions 13 and 14 will be referred to Judiciary Rules and Administration for printing. The House will now advance to the 8th order of business, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 8th order.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill Number 230 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to state symbols, amending Chapter 45, Title 67 Idaho Code by the addition of new Section 674513 to provide that the Idaho giant salamander is designated and declared to be the state amphibian of the state of Idaho. House Bill Number 231 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to public works, amending Section 44-1001 Idaho Code to provide an exception to the employment of residents of Idaho in public works. House Bill Number 232 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to the insurance contract, amending Chapter 18, Title 41 Idaho Code by the addition of new Section 41-1851 to define terms and to establish that any notice to a party or any other document required under applicable law in an insurance transaction or that is to serve as evidence of insurance coverage may be delivered, stored, and presented by electronic means so long as it meets certain requirements, to provide procedures and to provide application. House Bill Number 233 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Commission on the Arts for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions and providing guidance for employee compensation. House Bill Number 234 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Division of Human Resources for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions, providing legislative intent, and providing guidance for employee compensation. House Bill Number 235 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Public Employee Retirement System for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions, providing legislative intent, and providing guidance for employee compensation. House Bill Number 236 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Idaho State Lottery for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions, providing legislative intent, and providing guidance for employee compensation. House Bill Number 237 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Division of Public Safety for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions and providing guidance for employee compensation. House Bill Number 238 by Appropriations Committee, an act appropriating monies to the Department of Finance for fiscal year 2014, limiting the number of authorized full-time equivalent positions and providing guidance for employee compensation. House Bill Number 239 by Health and Welfare Committee, an act relating to pharmacists, amending Section 54-1705 Idaho Code to define a term and to revise definition, amending Section 54-1719 to provide that the Board of Pharmacy shall be responsible for the compounding, dispensing, and distribution of certain medications, drugs, devices, and other materials within the practice of pharmacy, and to make a technical correction, amending Section 54-1752 to remove reference to retail pharmacies, and amending Section 373201, 54-1716, 54-4702, and 5110 to provide correct code references. House Bill Number 240 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to the authority of port districts to provide fiber optic service, amending Title 70 Idaho Code by the addition of new Chapter 1, Title 70 Idaho Code to define terms, to provide findings, to provide authority to provide for rates and terms, to provide for a separate utility function, for bonds and use of revenue, for application of eminent domain, to provide for the use of public rights-of-way, and to provide for review by petition to the Idaho Public Utilities Commission.
House Bills 230 through 240 inclusive will be referred to the Judiciary Rules Administration Committee for printing.
In the Senate, Senate Bill Number 1074 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to a license to retail liquor, amending Section 23903 Idaho Code to revise a provision relating to the issuance of a license to retail liquor to the owner, operator, or leasee of an equestrian facility and to make technical corrections. Senate Bill Number 1093 by Education Committee, an act relating to education and the Transportation Support Program, amending Section 33-1006 Idaho Code to provide that the total monies paid to school districts and public charter schools for certain transportation costs shall be reduced by a certain amount and shall be used as discretionary spending. House Bill 1063 by Health and Welfare Committee, an act relating to the Medical Consent and Natural Death Act, amending Section 3945.014 to revise provisions relating to when health care may not be withdrawn or denied and to make a technical correction. Senate Bill number 1072, as amended by Health and Welfare Committee, relating to organ donation, the Organ Donation Contribution Fund, amending Chapter 10, Title 56, Idaho Code by the addition of Section 561055, to create the Organ Donation Contribution Fund to provide for duties of the Department of Health and Welfare and the administration of the fund, and to identify possible recipients of the money from the fund, amending Section 49306 to authorize voluntary contributions to the Organ Donation Contribution Fund by persons applying for renewing a driver's license and to make technical corrections, amending Section 49402 to authorize voluntary contributions to the Organ Donation Contribution Fund by persons applying for or renewing motor vehicle registration, amending Section 49401B to provide a correct code reference, amending Section 674223A to provide a correct code reference and providing effective dates. Senate Bill number 1062, as amended by Resources and Environment Committee, an act relating to trespass, amending Sections 187008 and 361603 to provide for the use of high-visibility shades of orange paint in postings associated with trespassing prohibitions, to provide provisions relating to the painting of metal fence posts and to make technical correction. Senate Bill number 1048, as amended by Judiciary and Rules Committee, an act relating to driver's licenses, amending Section 491505 Idaho Code to provide that the Idaho Transportation Department may not suspend a driver's license for a parking violation and declaring an emergency. Senate Bill number 1113 by Finance Committee, an act relating to the appropriation to the Department of Self-Governing Agencies for the medical boards, amending Section 1, Chapter 129, Laws of 2012 to revise the appropriation to the medical boards for fiscal year 2013 and declaring an emergency.
Senate Bill 1074 will be referred to the State Affairs Committee. Senate Bill 1093 will be referred to the Education Committee. Senate Bills 1063 and 1072 as amended will be referred to the Health and Welfare Committee. Senate Bill 1062 as amended will be referred to the Resource and Conservation Committee. Senate Bill 1048 as amended will be referred to the Transportation Committee. And Senate Bill 1113 will be filed for second reading. Without objection, the House will now advance to the 10th order of business, second reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 10th order.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill 181 by State Affairs Committee regarding Capital Maintenance Reserve Fund. House Bill 155 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee regarding driver's licenses, cell phone, and wireless device use. House Bill 170 by Transportation and Defense Committee regarding real estate appraisers. House Bill 171 by Transportation and Defense Committee regarding highways. Senate Bill 1006 as amended by Transportation Committee regarding Transportation Board. Senate Bill 1027 by Education Committee regarding education. Senate Concurrent Resolution 105 by Local Government and Taxation Committee regarding Tax Appeals Board. Rules rejected.
House Bill 181, 170, 171, Senate Bills 1006 as amended, Senate Bill 1027, and Senate Concurrent Resolution 105 will be filed for the third reading. The House will now advance to the 11th order of business, third reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 11th order. The House will have under consideration House Bill 178. The gentleman from District 30.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of House Bill 178 be dispensed with.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the gentleman is recognized. Open debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen of the House, House Bill 178 has one simple purpose. The purpose of this legislation is to extend the authority of the Immunization Board to sunset on July 1st, 2015. Now, if you allow me a little bit of time, I'll talk about some history of this board. In response to state budget cuts eliminating the state general funds for vaccine purchase, Idaho's immunization assessment system was created in 2010. Legislation was enacted through the combined efforts of the medical provider community, the Legislative Healthcare Task Force, the Idaho Immunization Program, and health insurers. Now, how this system works. The Immunization Assessment Board determines an annual assessment from insurance carriers based on the number of children aged 0 through 18 years covered by each insurer. The number of children covered is determined by the insurance themselves as part of an annual survey sent at the beginning of each year. Assessments are collected by the Department of Insurance and transferred to the immunization program in the Department of Health and Welfare. The funds are then used to purchase vaccines at a reduced price, utilizing a federal contract which allows state governments to purchase vaccines at the same price as the federal government, therefore saving up to 33% on the vaccines. House Bill 178 will extend the authority of the Immunization Board to sunset on July 1st, 2015. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 178 came out of the Business Committee on a unanimous vote. Therefore, ask for your green light.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Hearing none, the question is, shall House Bill 178 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes.
Right there, just one time. Anderson's gone.
Has every member voted?
Anderson and Ramos are the only people that are gone. Bateman. Gibbs. Okay.
Does any member wish to change his vote? Clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. Roll call shows 61 ayes, 7 nay, 2 absent and excused. House Bill 178 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 178 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 162. The gentleman from District 30.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the further reading of House Bill 162 be dispensed with.
Without objection, the gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, this legislation is a result of a new U.S. Department of Education rule scheduled to go into effect July 1st. That requires all schools whose students receive Title IV funding to be designated as post-secondary. On page 2 of the bill, schools of cosmetology are defined as post-secondary, and it clarifies that the schools are licensed by the Board of Cosmetology. Additionally, the students who enroll must meet the current requirements for licensure. Page 3 of the bill adds an emergency clause to allow the Board of Cosmetology to change their licensure designation before July 1st. There are 27 licensed schools in Idaho that educate over 2,000 students a year, with over 90% of these students utilizing financial aid. 85 to 95% of these students have jobs upon graduation. The default rate of students in this industry averages 9% or lower, as testified in the Business Committee, significantly below the national average for students across the board. This legislation has been worked on collaboratively with the Board of Cosmetology, the attorneys at the Bureau of Occupational License, as well as both associations representing cosmetology schools in Idaho. This legislation is critical to maintaining a workforce in cosmetology industry in Idaho, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, I ask for your green light.
Thank you. Is there further debate? The lady from District 28.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I need to declare Rule 38 as I own a salon. I will vote.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 162 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes.
Just press this real quick. See, now it's open for voting. So the only ones we're looking for are Raybold and Anderson.
Has every member voted? Eskridge, Gibbs, Hartkin. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 62 aye, 6 nay, 2 absent and excused. House Bill 162 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 162 will be transmitted to the Senate.
Mr. Speaker.
Good gentleman from
privilege.
District 12.
Members of the House and
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. Members of the House, I'd like to introduce and welcome my Sunday school teacher, Mr. Brent Eshelman, who is a teacher, I believe, at Boise High School. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Body, I believe the House has also been joined in the gallery by the representatives from Farmers Insurance, and we would like to extend them a special welcome. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 131. Good lady from District 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request unanimous consent to dispense with reading House Bill 131.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, this is a very simple bill, so I encourage you to not try to complicate it.
We won't if you don't.
I won't. We are dealing with Idaho Code Section 42204, and this code addresses the water rights and permits and provides a process for obtaining a permit. Now, I guess I probably should maybe, for anybody who's not that familiar with water, well, that might be me. But at any rate, if you apply for a permit to develop water for beneficial use, you go to the Idaho Department of Water Resources, you make the application. If everything works out, you receive the permit. That first 5 years is automatic, and you have that time with lots of timelines to prove up your development for beneficial use. Now, if anything happens along the way in the current statute, and you don't quite get there, and you need an extension, the statute as it currently reads is a little bit too stringent. You would qualify for the extension if it was a federal government issue. Who knows what the federal government's going to be doing, or if their land's involved at all, rights of ways, or maybe they're going to take it out on you because you have cows. Who knows? But the federal government or anything the United States government does that's influencing or keeping you from finishing your development would be one reason, and the other would be litigation, to be in a lawsuit. That's pretty stringent. But let's say for whatever reason you've got your extension and you had then another 5 years to complete your development, and through no fault of your own, because there are other circumstances out there, through no fault of your own, you're still not quite there. If you don't have everything completed by the timeline, and I hate timelines, that's why I'm always late. If you don't finish, then the Department of Water Resources could say, okay, you did 2 CFS out of the 5 CFS that you have on your permit. And so we're okay with that. You got that. But you would have to forfeit the remaining 3. Well, if you put any money into your project and it was halted or stalled or slowed down because of circumstances beyond your control, then you just forfeited it. And that just isn't right. Idaho water, of course, water is important everywhere. You don't have water to drink, you die. But it's particularly important in Idaho, and it's important that we protect and produce and develop our resources. So anyway, that's kind of where it is now. So all we want to do is amend the statute, broaden the reasons for good cause that you might get an additional extension. There would be no limit. It would be between you and the Idaho Department of Water Resources. They're still in the driver's seat. There will still be rules that have to be met. But you would at least have that opportunity to show good cause and come forward with completing your development. What else can I tell you that I think you need to know? Not much. Oh, well, I guess I could mention that some of the things that really have cropped up over the years, I think this law actually goes back to 1903. I think there were approximately 13 amendments up to this date. The last one was 1989. So we're not exactly reinventing the wheel because times change. You're sitting at a computer. This is different than 20 years ago when we had our bill books. Frankly, I prefer the bill books, but I got a computer. So anyway, you know, things like the recession, which has been very recent and is still going on. You've got your recession. Some of your lending markets close up. There can be real estate transactions, land swaps. Maybe you have to go back through a little bit of the permitting process to prove up on stock water, and then, of course, locally, your local governments and even your state sometimes, counties. Most of us here probably remember the CAFO days that we went through. So you have all kinds of administrative difficulties coming up, or that could be difficult for you coming up. CAFO is one because until recently it was not a problem, but someplace it turned up as a problem. It just gives the Idaho Department of Water Resources a little more flexibility to deal with the requests for extension. And I guess I would look at this a little bit as just a smidge more protection for private property rights. I kind of think of it as a good guy bill. You know, let's give the good guy a break. And I hope I've told you enough that you don't keep me up here all day answering questions that have absolutely nothing with getting a permit extension. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I would ask for a green light. Oh,
thank you, good lady.
I guess I would stand for questions reluctantly.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 23.
Would the lady from District 8, I think it is, yield to a question?
Well, the good lady yield to a question.
I'm thinking about it. Say no. I know this guy, and it would be so...
Yes or no?
Yes.
The lady yields.
Thank you, Mr.
You just want to get me
Speaker.
in trouble.
Good lady. I just need to understand it just a little bit better. Now, during the first 5 years that they're trying to establish this thing, does that start the clock rolling on beneficial use? If it does, at the end of 5 years, they can take that water right away. And this extension, does it solve that, or is it not running the clock for beneficial use to begin with?
Lady from 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I know the gentleman. I don't have his number. What is it?
23.
23. Everybody knows it but me. Gentleman from 23. All right, let me go back just a little bit. You get the 5-year permit to start your development toward beneficial use, and the clock starts when you get the permit. And if you have not completed or done what you need to do in that length of time, then you can apply for an extension, and maybe you'll get it. But that's just 10 years, and that's not very long if you have any kind of significant project. So let's say that second 10 years, when the clock is working all this time, sorry about that, the clock is working all this time, and if you don't meet the deadline on your extension, if you got an extension, if you didn't get the extension for whatever reason, then you're done. You're abandoned. I do recall that the department could, if you had only developed, say you got a 5 CFS on your permit, and maybe you only did 2 CFS to beneficial use, they could leave you with that, but you will have forfeited the remaining 3. Depending on your plans and how much money you spend, that could be very costly. I should tell you this, in committee, this should make the gentleman from 20 be quiet now. In the committee, there was no opposition. The support for the bill was the Idaho Farm Bureau Federation, the Idaho Water Users Association, and the Department of Water Resources, who were very glad to have further clarification and a little bit more flexibility to deal with these problems. So, did I get there?
Is there further debate?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, lady from 8. My question was not in opposition. My question was to support my convictions. Ladies and gentlemen, you go to a lot of work, and if unknown circumstances cause you problems that you can't establish that, and you run out of time because of beneficial use, there has to be something in the law to allow that extension, because you have things happen to you that are not in your control. And this is a very, very good bill. I can tell you I've transferred water, I've done things like that, and I understand what happens. So please vote for this bill.
Gentleman from 24.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good lady stand for further question?
Will the lady from District 8 stand for question?
I suppose so.
Lady yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good lady, as I read section page 2 here, lines 22 to 24, it appears that this language detaches land from water development. And the way it seems to be worded is that it would allow a permit that had to do with land development to also be protected, as it were, in the delay process against intrusive zoning, city or other local government permitting. Was that the intent of the law, of the language here? Would it allow the applicant to protect a land-related proposal detached from a water proposal?
Lady from 8.
Mr. Speaker and gentleman from what?
24.
24. My understanding that one of the reasons we need a little bit more flexibility with this law, if you're developing a water to beneficial use, it may at some point in time be part of a land deal. Maybe you have to swap some land. Maybe you have to buy some land. So from that standpoint, land would be caught up in the development. Now, I'm not too sure what your question is.
Would the gentleman care to restate his question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm looking specifically at line 23, where it says the applicant's land or water development. As I read that, a land development project detached from a water development project could be protected from city or local government intrusion, like zoning, for example, permitting, and allow the developer of the land project to ask for an extension as I read the rest of the statute. Is that the intent of is that the intent?
Lady from 8.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, gentlemen, I don't think that's the intent, and I don't actually read it with the same interpretation you do. But no, all this has to do is with a water right permit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, good lady.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 131 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Gannon. Does any member wish to change his vote? Clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 68 aye, 0 nay, 2 absent excused. House Bill 131 has passed the House. Is there correction to the title? Hearing none, House Bill 131 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 102. Good lady from District 4.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask for unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of House Bill 102.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 102 is relating to the Idaho State Police, amending Section 672902, which deals with the Idaho State Forensic Laboratories. The Idaho State Police Forensic Services Laboratories are publicly funded through the Idaho Legislature and the Idaho General Fund. All their supplies, their implementation, their equipment, their personnel expenses, facilities are all funded by taxpayer funds. And the Idaho State Police Forensic Services exists to provide no-cost forensic science casework support to all local, state, and other law enforcement in Idaho. And they provide forensic testing at the request of law enforcement, prosecutors, and public defenders. Now, this legislation is intended to protect the laboratories from being ordered by the courts or any other entity to make the laboratory resources available to private forensic experts working as consultants. The laboratory believes this statute wording is needed to close a potential loophole that currently exists. A private defense expert using the lab is problematic for the state lab for 3 reasons. The use of state-funded equipment for a private business is a misuse of state resources and taxpayer funding. The Idaho State Police does not have a mechanism to charge for the use of the equipment, nor is it in the scope of their existence as a state agency. Second, the laboratory accreditation process requires the lab to train and certify any individual using laboratory equipment and instrumentation. Training private defense experts to properly use the state lab equipment is time-consuming, costly, and unnecessary. In addition, there are certain areas of the laboratory, like the DNA unit, that are restricted to a handful of employees for contamination concerns. Third, there are security and productivity concerns when private experts are in the laboratory. When a private expert is in the laboratory, all other activity must cease due to security and contamination concerns. So this proposed legislative wording requires private forensic consulting businesses to have the equipment to perform the services they are contracted to perform. So this gives some security to our forensic laboratories and closes that loophole. It came from the committee with the due pass, and I would ask for your green light.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 102 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 68 ayes, 0 nay, 2 absent, excused. House Bill 102 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 102 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 105.
Mr. Speaker,
District 33.
I ask unanimous consent that further reading of House Bill 105 be dispensed with.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. This legislation deals with the registration of sex offenders. I learned recently that there are 3,900 registered sex offenders in the state of Idaho. In addition, there's 1,600 now serving in prison. I was really startled by the size of that number and that there's so many in a small state like Idaho. And one can actually wonder how many more there are roaming among us who have not been detected. This is a very, very sad subject indeed to even talk about. And dealing with the problems relating to sexual predation has been a real challenge. Psychological treatment programs are not always successful, especially when an offender's brain has been conditioned by a steady flow of pornography. The Constitution given to us by our founding fathers gave the states authority to control pornography, but that authority has been largely taken from the states by the U.S. Supreme Court. It's one of the areas that the states have lost. Fortunately, the legislation before you today does give us a tool in dealing with sexual crimes. Currently, sexual offenders must pay a $40 per year fee to the sheriff when they're registered. This helps pay for internal administration of costs dealing with sex crimes. This legislation authorizes the collection of an additional $40 per year, and this money will be used to operate a sheriff's statewide sex offender registration system. We do have a system in place now, but not all the counties are covered, and there's been a decline in federal grants. I want you to remember that. There's been a decline in federal grants. The money's used to maintain this system. So this money is desperately needed to cover the entire state with a registration system. And now there is an exception for indigents. A registered sex offender who is indigent will not have to pay this fee. I urge a yes vote, Mr. Speaker and members of the House.
Is there further debate? The gentleman from District 20.
Would the gentleman yield to a question?
Gentleman yield.
The gentleman yields.
Gentleman
Thank you,
from
Mr.
District
Speaker.
33 yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman. I noticed on the fiscal impact, it said that it has no impact to the general fund. Do you know what the amount will be when they apply this into the ILET system? How much it will cost to reboot the ILET system to cover that part?
Gentleman from 33.
Mr. Speaker, gentleman from 20. This will cost about $145,000 annually.
Thank you, gentlemen. To debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. I want everybody to know I'm in full support of this bill. I'm debating for the bill, but I just want everybody to realize about the fact of the fiscal impact that it really does have. And every bill that we deal with that deals around these type of things do have a fiscal impact on those kind of things that we talked about, like the ILET system. Thank you. And I am in support of the bill.
Gentleman from 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good gentleman yield?
Will the gentleman from District 33 yield to a question?
The gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good gentleman. I'm a little confused. Is this for a second system to register sexual offenders, or is this for a current system upgrade?
Gentleman from 33.
Mr. Speaker, and the gentleman from
6.
6. We currently have a system in place. It's called Offender Watch, but it doesn't cover all 44 counties. And until it does, Idaho State Police will not accept reporting via the Offender Watch. So we have to cover all 44 counties before the Idaho State Police will accept the reporting.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 105 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Hansey. Representative Wood. Votes aye. Does any member wish to change his vote? Clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 68 ayes, 0 nay, 2 absent, excused. House Bill 105 has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 105 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 125. Good gentleman from District 16.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent that we dispense with further reading of House Bill 125.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill will require guardians and conservators of vulnerable adults to disclose their civil judgments and bankruptcies and undergo FBI criminal history and background checks in the court proceedings that occur when a guardian or a conservator is appointed. Other provisions of the bill allow but do not require the court to order those who will be living with the ward to undergo a criminal history and background check. The bill makes exempt institutions and legal and commercial entities that might be appointed as conservators or guardians, and it authorizes the Department of Health and Welfare to perform the checks, receive payment for them, and promulgate necessary rules. It also assures that background information does not automatically disqualify someone from being a guardian or a conservator or a co-resident of the ward. The bill is not retroactive, so no current guardian or conservator will have to undergo the background checks. To give you an overview of the bill, it amends 6 sections and 3 titles. Sections 1, 2, and 3 of the bill pertain to incapacitated adults, such as an elderly person who is no longer able to manage his or her affairs. Section 4 of the bill authorizes the Department of Health and Welfare to perform the criminal history and background checks. And Sections 5 and 6 pertain to adults with developmental disabilities and the proceedings for appointing guardians and conservators for them. There is no fiscal impact to the general fund because those checked will pay the Department of Health and Welfare for the background check. At present, the fee is approximately $60. This bill results from over 2 years of work by the Idaho Council on Developmental Disabilities, which is a 23-member volunteer council appointed by the governor. The council has worked with representatives of the courts, the Department of Health and Welfare, the Idaho State Police, disability advocates, the trust and estate professionals of Idaho, and the FBI to bring this bill to you today because the FBI was involved because they have to approve the language if you're going to get an FBI criminal background check. This is a consensus bill, was unanimously given a due pass by the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, and there is no known opposition. The importance of the bill is shown by a report that all of us as legislators received from the Chief Justice of the Idaho Supreme Court at the beginning of the session, stating that there were over $309 million in assets being managed by conservators in Idaho in fiscal year 2012. It is also shown by these statistics. 90% of people with developmental disabilities will experience sexual abuse at some point in their lives, and only 3% of these cases will ever be reported. One reason for underreporting is that victims are often related to and dependent upon the support of the perpetrator. In 2011, MetLife released a study estimating that annual financial losses to the elderly because of exploitation was at least $2.9 billion nationwide. Guardians and conservators hold positions of great responsibility and trust over people who are generally defenseless. It is reasonable and necessary for the court to have the background information required by this bill before making an appointment, and I ask for your yes vote. I'll stand for any questions.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 125 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine, record the roll. The roll call shows 68 ayes, 0 nay, 2 absent, excused. House Bill 125 has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 125 will be transmitted to the Senate. The gentleman from District 14.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, just a heads up, it's our intention to run a little bit past noon for a little while into the noon hour because of what's going on tomorrow, so heads up for those of you that have lunch plans.
The House will now have under consideration House Bill 210. Good lady from District 25.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of House Bill 210.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing to do course corrections in the budget year that we're in, 2013, and we're just about to the end of that. And this one has a little happier ending in it. In FY 2013, you had $610.2 million in Medicaid general funds. FY 2012, we allowed them to carry forward anything that was left over in 2012. This bill before you would give them the spending authority now on that. And do remember, Medicaid's mostly trustee and benefit payments. Most of the budget is passed through. So the first item in this bill gives the 2013 budget spending authority for some 2012 money, 37.6. Then we had to do a little bit of reappropriation in it. we were hit with a court case with residential homes. We're in appeal, but we lost, and so we're paying $3.660 million in this bill. And then there is a little bit of an increase for provider rates, and these are the people that go into the homes and help those who are elderly or disabled stay in their homes longer. Attendant care services, homemaker services, and companion services, and you will find that will go on. It will be annualized, and that's another little amount. So finally, we add this 4.577, but on the end of the bill, we have a rescission of $46.2 million, and we're going to net $41,697,400. Now, Mr. Speaker, I don't think we made those kinds of errors, but if we make those kinds of errors, this is the kind we want to make. It's always a moving target, and you may believe it or not, but maybe Molina has made this a better system, and we have less caseload. So with that, I would ask for your green lights on this. Thank you so much.
Is there further debate? Good lady, or good gentleman from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good lady yield to the question?
The lady from District 25 yields
I would
to the
yield.
question. Lady yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good lady. This rescission amount is kind of to be expected as we tighten down the Molina system and improve claims performance. Is that will that be anticipated going forward, and the correction applied to the 2014 numbers as well?
Lady from 25.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman. The correction will go forward as income, but whether the 2014 budget looks that shiny, I can't tell you at this point. This is a budget that has such peaks and valleys that we just take the good when we get it, and until I find a way to stabilize and level out, that's my best bet, is that there will not be another rescission like that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lady.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 15.
Just a question if the good lady would yield.
Will the lady yield?
I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good lady. Just to follow up on the gentleman from 6's question, as we look at the fiscal note, will the beginning balance for the 2014 budget be the $470,973,000?
Lady from 25.
Would you, Mr. Speaker, explain again, would you please?
Will the gentleman clarify his question, please?
Thank
yes,
you.
Mr. Speaker, good lady. As we get to the 2014 budget, will the beginning point in that budget be the $470,973,000 that we have at the end of the 2013 appropriation after the rescission?
Good lady from District 25.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't think so. I will get back to you on that, but you've kind of caught me off guard on that. And if I apologize if I'm misspeaking, but I think it's no.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 210 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Bell. It'll happen to all of you. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 68 ayes, 0 nay, 2 absent, excused. House Bill 210 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 210 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 205. Good lady from District 18.
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of House Bill 205.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you. This legislation is brought by the Department of Education, and it would unfreeze movement on the state's funding grid for those educators who earned additional college credits but were unable to move across the grid in fiscal year 2011. Proposition 3 repealed this freeze, however, and so they were allowed to move over. But when voters repealed Proposition 3, the freeze was reinstated. So this legislation reinstates the repeal of the freeze and allows districts to receive full state funding for actual college credits earned by their certified staff. So just to reiterate, this bill simply removes the freeze that was in place in fiscal year 2011. And it was, our districts have already paid this money to the teachers, but then when the repeal of proposition happened, it basically put it back in effect. So this bill was passed unanimously out of committee with a do pass recommendation, so I ask for your green light.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 205 pass the House? The clerk will lock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Moyle. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will unlock, or the clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 66 aye, 2 nay, 2 absent, excused. House Bill 205 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 205 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 183. The gentleman from District 8.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the full reading of House Bill 183 be dispensed with.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, today I bring to you the first piece of gun legislation, and going back through what's been on the books, why back in 1967 there was a concern found that under current law, cities will have the authority to regulate, prohibit, or punish the use of concealed weapons. And this is under a statute in the amusement section of the code, actually 50-308. Well, that was put on in 1967. And in 2008, the good legislature decided that only the legislature of the state of Idaho could regulate concealment of weapons. So today, it's removing that short sentence to regulate, prevent, and punish for the carry of concealed weapons. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would ask for your yes vote.
Thank you. Is there further debate? The gentleman from District 16.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from 8 yield?
Will the gentleman from 8 yield?
The gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Before voting, good gentlemen, I just want to be sure I understand this. Are you telling us that the provision that we see in 50-308 Idaho Code, which is proposed to be struck by the bill, is in fact today a nullity because of a subsequent legislative enactment?
Gentleman from 8.
Mr. Speaker, good gentlemen, actually subsequent legislation was in 183302J, and if I could, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to read that.
The gentleman has the floor and has the right to always read from the code.
Except as expressly authorized by state statute, which that would do, no county, city, agency, board, or any other political subdivision of this state may adopt or enforce any law, rule, regulation, or ordinance which regulates in any manner the sale, acquisition, transfer, ownership, possession, transportation, carrying, or storage of firearms or any element relating to firearms, and components thereof, including ammunition. And just in the paragraph prior to this, which is basically the introduction of this legislation, the legislature specifically stated that they would control firearms, and that was their intent.
Is there further debate?
Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I understand the statute as read by the good gentleman from 8, it provides that this essentially provides that cities and counties, et cetera, which we see in 5308, would not be allowed to regulate except where there is a specific piece of legislation, a specific statute that says that they can. So as I understand the answer to my question, it is that 5308 and the statute that the gentleman read from can be read together to say that the various local entities can regulate, and therefore I think I will be voting against the bill, as this strikes me as a policy change. I think the previous statute read by the gentleman probably got it right. If we say specifically in the code that we want this kind of regulation, fine. If we don't, then it's regulated by the state. I don't see why we would want to take this kind of regulation away from our local units of government. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Good lady from District 11.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just had a question for the good gentleman from District 8.
Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman yields.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, good gentleman. I did have a question, and this came up earlier as well. When we talk about cities having the ability to regulate concealed weapons, the question that I had previously was cities have their own police forces, and concealed weapons can actually be carried by people who are felons who really aren't allowed to do that anyway. And so are you taking that ability away from the city to regulate it when a felon has the gun?
Gentleman from 8.
Mr. Speaker, good lady, the police powers are not being removed or infringed upon that the local police have. They have police powers in other areas of the statute to enforce the concealment of weapons that the legislature has put on the books. And I don't believe that there's anywhere in the ability for felons to obtain a permit to conceal.
No, not a permit. Thank you, good gentleman.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 23.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. This morning, I learned some interesting information coming to work, listening to talk radio, and there was 2 representatives in this body that were on that talk radio, and they brought out some interesting information that the Idaho Constitution contains as far as concealed carry. Now, I don't remember the section and where it's at particularly, but if those gentlemen would get up and explain that, this bill on the word regulate could fly in the face of that, and I'm a little bit concerned about that. To punish and prevent, they're following the law that's already established to prevent somebody from carrying illegally or to prevent or punish somebody for carrying illegally. But to regulate is a problem to me. I'd appreciate some help on that.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, would the good gentleman from District 8 care to close the debate?
Yes, I would, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I will ask for your yes vote on this bill. This is striking language out of Idaho Code, and if you refer to the top of that, it's municipal corporations, but it's under the amusement section, their ability to license and regulate amusements. And I do not believe this ability to regulate has any business being in this section of the statute. I would like to ask for your green light at this time.
The debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 183 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has Has every member voted? Representative Ringo. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 66 aye, 2 nay, 2 absent and excused. House Bill 183 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 183 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 192. The gentleman from District 20.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask unanimous consent that further reading of House Bill 192 be ceased.
You've heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, this piece of legislation, House Bill 192, that's before you today, is an enhanced concealed weapons carry bill. Right now in the state of Idaho, we have one level of concealed weapons permits, and it is, we'll say, the easier one to get, for better terminology on my part. I apologize for that. Idaho kind of has a reputation for having a very simple way to get a concealed weapons permit, and this will enhance it. And it's not this, it's going to be, there'll be 2 different permits. This one is a 3rd level, and it requires 8 hours of class time plus a minimum of 98 rounds of live fire. Therefore, it's all about training. This is just getting people more well-trained to be able to handle weapons in a situation where they might need them in a concealed environment. This is supported by the NRA and the FOP, and I haven't had any opposition to this bill as I've been bringing forward. I've had lots of letters from people throughout the state, throughout other states that appreciated it, and the biggest part of it is the reciprocity. Instead of the concealed weapons permit that we have now, which is only allowed in a few states, this will be allowed in up to 40 states currently. And with that, I'd ask for your green light.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 192 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 68 aye, 0 nay, 2 absent and excused. House Bill 192 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 192 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 197. Good gentleman from District 6.
Mr. Speaker, I think I'll ask unanimous consent to dispense with reading of House Bill 197.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman from District 6 is recognized to open debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 197 comes from the Department of Insurance. This legislation is a rewrite of requirements on insurance companies who are members of insurance holding company systems. For over 20 years, the Department of Insurance has required and reviewed these companies. Insurance holding company systems are defined as groups of 2 or more affiliated entities where one is an insurance company. The financial solvency of these systems of companies is an important consumer protection, and this bill updates current law. The law mostly remains unchanged in this rewrite and is based on the National Association of Insurance Commissioners model law. The NAIC is an organization of all state insurance regulators, and thus our own Director Bill Deal is a member of the organization. The changes proposed in this bill are the result of and reflect the updated 2010 NAIC model law. This law becomes an accreditation standard for the Idaho Department of Insurance. The existing Chapter 38 was based on the older 20-year-old model law and was also an accreditation standard. Accreditation is important to our Department of Insurance and to Idaho-based insurance companies. If our DOI process is not accredited, Those companies are subject to the insurance regulatory processes and forms from all of the states in which they do business. One company told me that they do business in 39 separate states and would have to do filings and reporting to all of those states instead of just the state of Idaho. So what happens in the bill itself? Besides the rewriting on the model law, there are some new parts. There's new reporting requirements if a holding company divests itself of an insurance entity. There's also a risk report for the entire enterprise, which is a new filing. The purpose of this report is to identify material risks in the insurance holding company system that could affect the insurer. It also requires that there be independent directors and an independent nominating committee for the board of directors. It allows the director of the Department of Insurance to participate in what are called supervisory colleges for companies that have international subsidiaries. It restates confidentiality of records to allow that there is a free exchange of records, and protects those records from civil suit, although they are still open for criminal prosecution, and does increase sanctions for violations by the holding companies. This bill is important to the public that buys insurance. It's an important accreditation standard and is required for the reciprocity that Idaho insurers hope to have when they do business in other states. And it allows the exchange of confidential information with other regulators to protect the customers. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I'd ask for a green light.
Is there further debate? The gentleman from District 23.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentleman from 8 yield?
Will the gentleman from 8 yield? How about the gentleman from 6?
Oh, gentleman from 6, I'm sorry.
Whoever.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I like the idea very, very much, but there's one thing that concerns me in there. As you and I both know, insurance companies are held to a higher standard to have reserves and assets than what banks are supposed to have, or maybe even possibly these holding companies. Is that holding company going to have to meet the asset liabilities and assets and liabilities that the insurance company has to meet?
Gentleman from 6.
Mr. Speaker and good gentlemen, yes, that there's nothing changing the surplus or holding requirements for the insurance company. In fact, this gives the Department of Insurance the ability to investigate the contract between the holding company and the insurer to assure that assets are not being bled off to support other enterprises. Yes, it does.
Follow-up question, Mr. Speaker.
Will the gentleman yield further?
Thank you for that.
Will the gentleman yield further?
The gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That satisfies the life insurance company, which I knew couldn't change. But the assets of the holding company may not require that same balance of ratio of assets, and that's what I'm asking. Is that considered into the asset relationship with the insurance company, and does the holding company have to raise their standards for assets compared to liabilities than they would if they weren't a holding company of a life insurance company?
Gentleman from 6.
Mr. Speaker and good gentlemen, nothing in this bill changes the standards for the insurance company. It does require that the holding company notify the director through the enterprise risk report of the holdings, whether they're risky or solid gold or whatever. The insurance company operates as the insurance company, whether it's United Heritage or it's United's health operating entity in the state of Idaho. It operates and has its balance sheet and its statutory surplus requirements that are true for the insurance company itself. Now, the holding company may have a bunch of different enterprises, and those enterprises may have their own requirements for their type of business. But this change in the law requires that the types of business and the holdings be reported to the Department of Insurance to assure that those assets, the surplus and assets of the insurance company retain and are available and protected for the insurance policyholders. I hope I'm answering your question, good gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I debate the bill?
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. And he's answered my question pretty satisfactorily. What we need to be aware of is that insurance company could back out from that holding company if it starts to affect their asset liability ratio. And by this reporting, that will ensure that those insurance companies remain on solid footing. Therefore, I will vote for the bill.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 197 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Anderst, Patterson, Wood. Does any member wish to change their vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 58 aye, 10 nay, 2 absent and excused. House Bill 197 has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 197 will be transmitted to the Senate. The gentleman from District 14.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that the remaining bills on the third reading calendar hold their place one legislative day.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the remaining bills on the third reading calendar will hold their place for one legislative day. The House will now advance to the 15th order of business. Announcements. Are there announcements? Gentleman from 32.
Mr. Chairman, I had trouble booting up my computer. I was here for roll call and would like to ask unanimous consent to be considered present today.
Good sir, I believe that when you made your first vote, then that automatically updated your roll. So, if I understand the system. Are there further announcements? Gentleman from 22.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good ladies and gentlemen. The Majority Caucus will meet today at 3:30, and also a follow-up from yesterday's go-karting. It appears that when people out of this body transfer to the Senate side, they slow down considerably, and the House has maintained its trophy by Speedy Reedy, and we thank all those who participated.
Good lady from District 26.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minority Caucus will be meeting at 3:30 in our caucus room, too.
Gentleman from 28.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The state boys basketball tournament will start this afternoon and continue through Saturday night. I do have free tickets. If you're interested, contact me. Thank you.
Gentleman from 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to gain sympathy, I'm going to remind people that the Legislative Council is meeting at 6:30 tomorrow morning.
6:30 a.m. Fun and good times. Clerk may read.
Following are the Standing Committee meeting announcements for this afternoon. Agricultural Affairs Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing Room 42, Andrus Chairman. Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing Room 41, Raybould Chairman. Local Government Committee will not meet this afternoon, Barrett Chairman. Transportation and Defense Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing Room 40, Palmer Chairman. For tomorrow morning, Education Committee will meet upon the adjournment of the House, East Wing Room 41, DeMordaunt Chairman. Health and Welfare Committee will not meet tomorrow morning, Wood Chairman. Revenue and Taxation Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. or when upon adjournment of the House, Collins Chairman. And State Affairs Committee will meet tomorrow morning upon adjournment of the House, East Wing Room 40, Lurcher Chairman. For Friday afternoon, Business Committee will not meet. Commerce and Human Resources Committee will not meet Friday afternoon. Judiciary, Rules and Administration Committee will not meet Friday afternoon. And Resources and Conservation Committee will meet Friday afternoon at 1:30, East Wing Room 40, Denny, Chairman.
The House will now advance to the 16th order of business, adjourned with the House at the 16th order.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn until the hour of 8 a.m. Friday, March 1st, 2013.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries, and the House stands adjourned until the hour of 8 a.m. Friday. Can't believe it's March 1st, 2013.